Erev Tov, everyone. Oh, let's try that again. Like the kids on Sunday morning do a much better job. Erev Tov, everyone. Good. It's truly a pleasure to welcome all of you to Congregation Shalom for what promises to be a very, very important conversation. And before we begin, I just want to draw your attention at the very back. There were cards and pens so that you could, as the talk proceeds, that you could write down some questions and then we'll sort them out and hopefully we'll get to them this evening. And so I know we'll be passing them out throughout the lecture if you've got a thought or a question. So we're living in a time when words travel faster than facts, when headlines harden into assumptions, and when distorted narratives do not remain abstract. They shape attitudes, they shape policy, and increasingly they shape the safety and standing of the Jewish community, not only globally, not only here in the United States, but right here in Wisconsin. We have felt it in our schools, and we've seen it on our campuses. We've heard it in our public discourse. When misinformation about Israel spreads unchecked, it does not stay on the page or the screen. It spills into our relationships, into our civic life, and into the atmosphere that our children inherit. And that's why I've long admired the work of Honest Reporting and its mission, the commitment to accuracy, accountability, and fairness in media coverage about Israel and beyond. In an era when anti-Semitism often disguises itself with distortions and selective framing or narrative manipulation, insisting on truth isn't a luxury, it is a responsibility. At times, it can mean the difference between dignity and danger. So tonight's conversation really matters. It matters beyond politics, it matters beyond ideology, it matters because truth matters. This evening, I actually really want to thank our partners, Sue Carneal and Donna Kleiner of Media Ambassadors Milwaukee. They envisioned this evening and bringing this important program to our community. I'm tremendously grateful for your leadership and partnership. I also want to recognize and thank State Senator Jody Habush-Sinekin for being with us this evening. Thank you. Where are you? I think you're somewhere around here. Thank you. You're at the back. Senator, we're grateful for your presence and your service on behalf of all Wisconsinites. Public leadership in serious times, it requires courage, steadiness, and a commitment to the common good, and we thank you for your leadership. Tonight, we're joined by someone who has spent his professional life at the intersection of politics, media, and Israel security. Gil Hoffman is the executive director of HonestReporting.com, an organization dedicated to combating misinformation and bias about Israel in international, mainstream, and social media. For nearly 25 years, Gil served as chief political correspondent and analyst for the Jerusalem Post, and during that time, he interviewed every major figure across the Israeli political spectrum and developed relationships with both Israeli and Palestinian leaders. His reporting and analysis have been sought out by major news outlets across 6 continents. Many of you have likely seen him on CNN and Al Jazeera and other international networks, offering clarity during some of Israel's most consequential moments. Originally from Chicago, Gil graduated from Northwestern University School of Journalism, and after writing for the Miami Herald and the Arizona Republic, he made Aliyah and built his career in Israel. He serves as a reserve soldier in the IDF spokesperson's unit, giving him a first-hand perspective on the realities facing the country. He's lectured in every major English-speaking country in the world, in more than half of my home country, Canada's provinces, and recently made history in Hawaii as the first speaker to lecture about Israel in all 50 of these United States. Gil lives in Jerusalem with his family, and please join me in welcoming Gil Hoffman.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Rabbi. Thank you, Donna and Sue, for making this all happen, for being relentless and incredible. I want to clone you and put you all around America. And thank you all for coming out here on this weekend night. And I'm so glad that I could bring some relatively warm weather from Israel over here. I hope you enjoyed that today. I am so happy to be back here in Milwaukee. You got to understand what it's like to grow up as an observant Jew in Chicago. I'll explain you, because all the top recording artists, singers, and bands came to Chicago on Friday night or too early on Saturday. And they came to Milwaukee on Thursday or on Sunday. So we would come here to Milwaukee for all the best band, Billy Joel, Elton John, growing up, and then some of the best rock stars later on after that. And for me, Milwaukee is like paradise. And so I am so excited to be back here. You heard from the rabbi. I've spoken in all 50 states, culminating in a talk a while back in a synagogue in Hawaii that trademarked the word shaloha. And before that, in a synagogue in Alaska that tried to trademark frozen chosen. And so I keep on trying to get around, though I wish it was as easy now to travel as it used to be. I mean, I wanted to take my children somewhere abroad for Hanukkah, and it was kind of a hard task to figure out even where to go. We said, okay, America's too far, we don't have enough time. Europe, there's really nowhere to go except for Hungary, which I've heard is boring. So, I ended up taking them to a safari in Africa, thinking that it's safer for a Jew among lions and cheetahs than people. And that's the way the world has gotten, unfortunately. And we're here at a very sensitive time, because now that, except for the Iranian question that's very much open, the other battlefields since October 7th are for the most part done. And then it's the narrative warfare that continues. And all along it's been true, the quote, that success on the media battlefield is the key to success on the military battlefield. That's a quote from, out of all people, Osama bin Laden. But moving forward, it's the only key. And I'll give you a stark contrast. This war will either be remembered as when Israel became an international pariah like apartheid South Africa, or when Israel saved the world from genocidal terrorists and an Islamic fundamentalist nuclear weapon. It's one or the other. And if the world continues believing the lies, then anti-Semitism is going to continue to go up. Terrorism will continue to go up in places that even don't have any Jews. I've spoken at Utah Valley University, for instance, where Charlie Kirk was murdered. And Israelis won't be able to travel anywhere. The world will become more unsafe. But if the world realizes the truth, then we're going to have a post-war / post-pandemic economic boom in Israel. And anti-Semitism will go down in the United States, terror will go down, and America will be safer. It's that big a difference. And it depends on all of us. I truly believe that we've all made an impact in this war. Because what's happened in past wars in Gaza was that the international media put pressure on world leaders who put pressure on Israel to end wars prematurely without any accomplishments. We could not let that happen in this war. And in this war, unfortunately, we needed to have a longer war than normal in order to rid Gaza of the terror infrastructure that had been building up for 17 years. It bothers me when people try to portray us as the Goliath in this war and our enemies as a David, when the truth is the other side prepared for this war for 17 years, and our side didn't prepare at all. I met with Netanyahu's national security advisor on Friday, October 6th at 2 p.m. because one-on-one, because I had a speaking tour coming up, and before I have a speaking tour, I want to make sure I know things that other people don't know. And we went through the different security threats that Israel was facing, and when we finally got to Hamas, the word that he used to describe Hamas was restrained. He said, well, they haven't joined the last 3 wars between Israel and Islamic Jihad. He kind of hinted that he thought they were getting out of the terror business. What do they care about? Getting more workers into Israel from Gaza. That's what he was negotiating. He was negotiating an agreement with Saudi Arabia, and he had already agreed on behalf of Israel to double the amount of Gazan workers coming into Israel, which would have revitalized the Gazan economy. That's where Israel was on Friday, October 6th. Now, to put this into perspective, I've been to Gaza 4 times. My first time in Gaza was as an 18-year-old kid on a gap year program between high school and college. And they gave us a perk that for one weekend, they brought us to a resort called the Palm Beach Hotel. It was right there on the beach in Gaza, long before anybody dreamed of putting a Riviera over there. And I remember thinking about the potential. My second time in Gaza was as a journalist. I followed around wherever the politicians went, and a group of left-wing politicians went to meet with the Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat at his palace in Gaza. And I remember it like it was yesterday. First of all, because I left my cell phone in the entrance, like they made us leave our cell phones in the entrance when we came in, and I forgot to take my phone on the way out. They made us leave our phones there because Israel had used remote controls to kill terrorists. On the way out, I forgot to take my phone, and a general from the Israeli side and a Palestinian side met for the first time in months just to get back my phone. I also remember it like it was yesterday because halfway through, Arafat kicked out the journalists to meet alone with the politicians, and the New York Times lady didn't leave. She pretended to be the daughter of one of the members of Knesset. And as I'm leaving and I look back, I see Arafat giving her a big kiss on the forehead. And I lost a little respect for the New York Times already then. My third time in Gaza was as a soldier. I served in a combat unit, but I switched over for my reserve duty to Dover Tzahal, the spokesman's unit of the IDF, because I wanted to use my skills and experience as a journalist to help Israel against its enemies. But I didn't get called up for Israel against its enemies. I got called up for the withdrawal from Gaza, where my job was to show the journalists the tremendous sacrifice that Israel was making for peace, right? So I took around the journalists from the New York Times, together with the journalists from Fox. Don't worry, they got along. They were even married to each other, and still are, to this day. Opposites attract sometimes, but don't try this at home. And I remember how they talked back then about how Gaza could become the Singapore of the Mediterranean. And maybe it could have. But then the Hamas overthrew the rightful Palestinian leadership in Gaza. I don't like the word coup. I like the word overthrow, because they literally threw them off the top of buildings to the floor. They literally overthrew them to take power. Don't let anybody tell you they came to power in an election. And so that was the third time. And I came back again. 6 months after the war started, because I wanted to understand better what was going on over there. So I had a speaking tour coming up, so I called up my cousin, who was the deputy commander of the forces in southern Gaza, and I said, do you have any stories I could tell the people that I meet in America? And he said, why do you want stories from me? Come see things for yourself. Just get permission from the right person at the IDF. So I called up the right person at the IDF and asked if I could come into Gaza, and he said, no. And then I kind of begged. I said, I'm not worried about my safety. I'm going to a much more dangerous place for Jews than Gaza. I'm going to UC Berkeley. And he still didn't let me in, and I called up my cousin all dejected. They're not letting me in. And he gave me the ultimate Israeli response of, screw them, they won't know. And before I knew it, I was on his Jeep touring around Gaza. And I got to see how 80% of the homes in Gaza had some kind of terror infrastructure. 80%. 100%, or nearly 100% of the schools, the hospitals, the playgrounds, the cemeteries. It takes time to remove all that. I wish we could have had a 6-day war. We're good at those. But unfortunately, we needed to have a longer war in order to rid Gaza of the terror infrastructure. It takes time to get rid of 400 miles of terror tunnels. But to get the world to agree to that is not easy. And so I think that those of us who questioned the media during the war played an important role in giving the army the breathing space necessary to bring about the situation where we are right now, where the security situation long-term has improved. Let's see what we have in this room. How many of you have posted something pro-Israel on social media since October 7th? Wow. Thank you so much for what you've done. You probably lost some friends. How many of you are on Facebook? Nearly everyone. How many of you are on Instagram? Almost everyone, too. How many of you are on X, formerly known as Twitter? 7 or so, maybe some used to be. Left the cesspool. Okay, how many of you are on Telegram? Just me and Hamas? Okay. How many of you are on Snapchat? Nobody young enough in this room. Okay. How many of you are on TikTok? Oh, only me and that gentleman over there and the rabbi. And the cantor's always on TikTok. The cantor around here. So more of you need to be on TikTok, fighting that important fight. It's a mitzvah. It was in this week's Torah portion. It said there, Midvar Sheker TikTok. We need you. And how many of you are on LinkedIn? Okay, so it's good. That's where we have our Jewish majority on social media. And how many of you are on none of them? Sir, how do you see your grandchildren? In person, but how do you spy on them to know who they're dating? Yeah, okay, but that's what social media is for, young man. Okay, so almost everyone in the room is a digital warrior in one way or another, and I really appreciate what you've done, and I've tried to do my part as well. You know, you can look up on the screen up there now. 2 different screens. It's really impressive over here. So I had a nice job for a while covering politics for the Jerusalem Post. I got to follow around presidents and prime ministers and everything. But on the side, I started doing more and more defending Israel. Over here, I'm on the BBC as the lady on the... No, I'm not playing it. And the lady on the BBC was mocking the rockets, saying they don't really damage anything anyway. What's the big deal? Here I am on CNN when the new embassy of America opened up in Jerusalem, and then I was given a chance to lead the fight for Israel on the media battlefield as the executive director of Honest Reporting, which started 25 years ago, but was really created for October 7th. I mean, it started with this picture in the New York Times of this bloodied boy with a menacing-looking soldier on top of him, and the New York Times said that the boy was Palestinian and harmed by this soldier on the Temple Mount near the Al-Aqsa Mosque, until his father saw the picture and said, "That's my son. His name is Tuvia. He's Jewish." And that soldier, who happens to be Druze and not Jewish, saved his life from an angry Arab mob when a taxi went into the wrong neighborhood in Jerusalem, but nowhere near the Al-Aqsa Mosque, where there is no gas station, that you can see in the picture. So they got literally everything wrong. And that led to an email group where people would share false headlines about Israel, and then to a website 25 years ago. But since I joined, along with a month later my boss back in 2022, we became a lot more aggressive. And since then, in 3.5 years, we have gotten 15 Hitler and Hamas praising anti-Semitic journalists suspended, reassigned, or fired, including 3 from the New York Times, 4 from AP, and 4 from CNN. Thank you. In Madison, they didn't clap. And we got 3 Christiana Amanpour to apologize 3 times on TV. We affected the Pulitzer Prize 2 years in a row. So I'd like to think that we are making a difference. And to put this into perspective, I will show you our 25th anniversary video.
Happy 2000!
In the year 2000, USA Today was America's largest newspaper. Time was the #1 news weekly, and each night, about 30 million Americans were watching these men.
We spent more than 3 hours a day on average listening to the radio. Social media and podcasting didn't even exist. And anti-Israel bias was prevalent in the media.
Today, the world is radically different. 53% of Americans get their news from social media. We spend 69% more time watching streaming than broadcast or cable TV. And we're spending more than 7 hours a week listening to podcasts. And anti-Israel bias has metastasized. So Honest Reporting, the world's leading pro-Israel media watchdog, has evolved.
And we're just getting started.
When print and TV were kings, we held them accountable, and we have never stopped. In the past 3 years alone, we've gotten 15 journalists fired or reassigned from leading media outlets like the New York Times, CNN, AP, Reuters, and the Washington Post. And we've driven countless corrections and retractions.
As the media landscape radically transformed from mass media to social media,
We've evolved.
And made educating the public through social media central to what we do.
to date, Honest Reporting has delivered almost 500 million social media impressions, with 60% of our audience being millennials and Gen Z. And our work has made an impact.
We've exposed Hamas-affiliated photographers, facilitated an Emmy-nominated segment on CNN, which drew attention to Israeli victims of October 7th, and built a dynamic, interactive map of Hamas's tunnels of terror.
And now, we're creating artificial intelligence tools to help people detect bias and fight back. Our custom-built AI tool continuously scans more than 100 top media outlets and flags anti-Israel bias. In a world fighting an army of Goliaths, we're David, except now, AI is our 21st century slingshot. The world is radically different from 25 years ago, and the world will be radically different 25 years from now. With your help, we will evolve with the times to ensure the world only hears honest reporting. Thank you for making it happen.
So what's it like being David surrounded by an army of Goliaths? Are you intimidated? No. Good. I'm glad you're not intimidated, sir. We shouldn't be. It's an uphill battle, but we Jews aren't afraid of uphill battles. We're used to being the minority, trying our best against the majority. It's the story of Hanukkah. That's what we have to do. And I don't look at it as a big mountain that can't be overcome. I realize there's a lot more anti-Israel people on social media and the internet than there are pro-Israel people. But every day we celebrate incremental progress. Every day we make a difference. And we have to, because we know that dishonest reporting kills. Just one example. Do you remember that photo in the New York Times of a baby who they said we starved? Well, a week before it was printed, Netanyahu went to Washington and they said in the White House that the hostages are coming home in a week. Well, then that photo ran there and then every other media outlet around the world. And by the time it came out that he had a disease that had nothing to do with the war, nothing to do with Israel, who even saw the correction? The damage was done. The negotiations were derailed. Hamas was empowered. And the people who were really starving, who were hostages in Gaza, stayed in the terror dungeons for another 3 months. So we have to fight even the littlest mistakes that they're making. Here's a 6-second video on CNN 4 days after October 7th. No? Go back. John, can we play Mr. Vauss over here?
9 million Palestinians live in Gaza, one of the most densely populated areas on earth, now being pummeled by Israeli airstrikes.
Since it's 6 seconds, we'll just play it one more time, John.
9 million Palestinians live in Gaza, one of the most densely populated areas on earth, now being pummeled by Israeli airstrikes.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, how many Palestinians live in Gaza? 2 million, correct. CNN is off by only 7 million people. Is Gaza one of the most densely populated areas on earth? Not even close. The most densely populated areas on earth happen to be in Asia: Manila, Hong Kong, India. How many mistakes can there be in a 6-second video? This is what we're up against. Little things like this, we absolutely have to be correcting them. Do you remember when you used to write letters to the editor on a typewriter? You had whiteout and everything, and you put the letter in an envelope and then in a box, and you hope that a pigeon would take it all the way to a newsroom where an intern would bring it up from the basement up to an editor who was smoking a cigar all the time, and he would decide whether to put it on page 12 or page 13 with no context whatsoever. It doesn't work that way anymore. And now we have an artificial intelligence tool that we've been optimizing. We've taught it the 8 categories of media bias that our humans were looking for 25 years, and they flag it, the AI tool flags it the second it goes online, and then we can get things changed 5 minutes after it went on the internet, before anybody got a chance to see it. That's how it works nowadays. And that's the way it has to prevent the damage from being done. And just a month into the war, we started asking questions like, how did the journalists get there so early to take pictures of this burning tank. So this was the tank of Omer Nutra of Long Island. And it was very early in the morning that day. How did 14 Gazan photographers know to be on rooftops in Gaza taking pictures at 6:29 in the morning on October 7th? Somebody must have tipped them off. So we started asking. And so first of all, I got a call at 6 o'clock in the morning from a media outlet where Hassan Asliach, who took this picture of the burning tank, worked. And saying, check out him, this creepy guy that's working with us. And it turned out, by the end of the day, we found a picture of him being kissed by Yihya Sinwar. So maybe that's how they knew to be there so early that day. And the picture before this is the picture of the year of Reuters of 2023. The driver of the tank, Shaked Dahan, being dragged to Gaza. We were worried that the person who took this picture, Mohammed Faik Abu Mustafa over here, would win a Pulitzer Prize. The video that we don't have to play it, but was an Instagram live video that he posted on that day, where he said to the people of Gaza, you got to follow me in. I've been all day in a settlement called Sderot, and we've been taking the men out, we've been killing the dogs, and we've been doing whatever we want to do with the women. We were worried this creep would win a Pulitzer Prize, and where he worked at Reuters actually did win a Pulitzer Prize for international photography. But their winning bid had no pictures from October 7th. And they were asked why. Was that a slow news day? And they said, there's this annoying media watchdog that questioned the physical and ethical boundaries that were crossed on that day. And so they did not include any picture that could have marred their winning bid. So we affected the Pulitzer Prize. And then there's Christian Amanpour, who, I'll take you back. April 2023 was a very sensitive time, 6 months before October 7th, because Passover, Ramadan, and Easter all fell on the same day. And there were a group of rioters that intended to attack worshipers, Jews and Muslim worshipers, and they barricaded themselves inside the mosque on the Temple Mount, and the police had to go in to disarm them. And when they did, of course, they got attacked, and then they had to defend themselves. And then when they tried to defend themselves, out came the cameras. And it looked bad, and the headlines around the world were Israeli police attack Muslim worshippers in Jerusalem Mosque. The truth was the opposite, but it made Muslims very angry, and some of them were determined to kill the first Jew they saw. The first Jew they saw was in Tel Aviv. He was an Italian tourist, and it turned out he wasn't Jewish. And he was murdered for the crime of looking Jewish, which is a terrible reason to die. And then in the Jordan Valley, a mother and her 2 children, Lucy Maya and Rena D., were on their way to vacation. And they got gunned down in their car, and Christiane Amanpour said they were killed in a shootout. And we caught her saying that, and she had to apologize for that. And if John could play the video over here.
And I think for sure.
Cut till halfway through or so. This is the day the last living hostages were released. Go for it.
Terrible 2 years for them, because not only are they there
they're probably being treated better than the average Gazan because they are the pawns and the...
She said that the Israeli hostages were probably treated better than the average Gazan, locked up in chains and in terror dungeons for 500 days and tortured. Arbel Yehud over the weekend said she was sexually abused every day for 480 days. Excuse me? And so I'll take you behind the scenes in the sausage factory. An ordinary person saw her say this live and alerted us, and we clipped the video. And the moment that we clicked the video, before it was even online, I sent it to the foreign minister of Israel. And he responded in under a minute with 2 words. The first word was kalba, and the second word was netapel. How's your Hebrew? Bitch, we'll deal with it. Sorry for saying that word in your sanctuary, Rabbi. But she got forced to apologize by the heads of CNN. She didn't want to. So this is why we have to keep them on their toes. But we're not CNN. So we need social media to get out to the people. And when I first started, we had only 4 million people seeing our content on social media in 2022. And now we brought it up to 300 million. And we had to. We had to be reaching out to the young people. 60% of the people who see our content are millennials and Gen Z, meaning younger than me. And 2/3 of them aren't followers of us in any way. They're ordinary people. And we really need to be reaching out to the young people and teaching that being progressive means being pro-Israel. You see some jagged line, a straight line above a jagged line over here? The straight line is what people over 65 think about Israel. The jagged line is what people 18 to 24 think about Israel. The people over 65, it's pretty consistent. People 18 to 24, it goes up and down, proving that they are impressionable. This is the current poll. Harvard-Harris has been taking polls for every month since October 7th, asking the question, are you more pro-Israel or more pro-Hamas? And right now, 72% of Americans say they are more pro-Israel, 28% more pro-Hamas, which is frightening. But look at the numbers among the ages. Among people 65 and over, it's 88% now that are on our side. It was 93 6 months ago. And the young people, right now, it's 55% say they favor Israel over Hamas. But 6 months ago, it was 51 to 49 the other way. Meaning that young people in America, 18 to 24, more than half of them were in favor of going to dance festivals and murdering, raping, and kidnapping as many people as they could, if they know what they're talking about, which they don't. But at least we can make an impression on them. At least they're changing their minds. We can make an impact. And the way to make an impact is to reach out to them where they are. And they're on social media and AI. And so we at Honest Reporting, we're in Israel, so we're 8 hours ahead. So every day we have time to make a new video by the time the young people in America wake up, and give them a tool that they could use based on whatever people are going to be talking about that day. So, John, if we can play the young woman with the black and white sweater there.
Headlines are running wild saying that the IDF has confirmed that 70,000 Gazans were killed in the Israel-Hamas war. It's important to note that the IDF has not officially confirmed this and hasn't released any updated data, but that clearly doesn't matter to the internet. Because for 2 years, Israel's been saying Hamas's death toll can't be trusted, but this number, claimed by Hamas and now acknowledged by an IDF official, would prove exactly the opposite. Except it isn't the gotcha they think it is. Because while the number was debated, so was the breakdown. Since 2024, Israeli officials have been citing a civilian to combatant ratio of 1.5 or 2 to 1.
Fewer than 2 to 1 ratio of civilians to Hamas terrorists killed.
They've also cited 25,000 combatants killed, and with a ratio of 2 to 1, that implies about 70,000 deaths total. The problem with the number stated by Hamas and echoed by the media was that it never distinguished between terrorists and civilians. It claimed that 70% of the dead were women and children, which Hamas's own May 2024 data disproved, when it showed that 52% of Gaza's fatalities were adult men. It didn't account for the thousands of civilians killed by Hamas and Islamic Jihad from failed rockets and brutal attacks against civilians. And it included natural deaths that were not war-related. Sorry to disappoint the anti-Israel fanatics that foamed at the mouth the moment they caught wind of this story, but it's just not new news, and it doesn't prove what you think it does. What the breakdown of that number proves is that there was no genocide, Israel was in fact targeting terrorists, not civilians, and Hamas intentionally omitted all of that to manipulate public perception and stoke hatred against Israel. And over 2 years later, the media is still sharing what Hamas says, no questions asked. So share this to correct what the media is getting wrong. Headline?
That's Adi, and the other one is Rachel. We won't play that video, but Rachel, that video is about the false accusations of Jeffrey Epstein being pro-Israel. They were in the media. You know, they even used AI to put our president in a picture with him. And but that's what people are talking about. We have to have a video ready for it. And in our videos, it's almost always women.
Headlines are running wild.
You'll see. In part because there was a study that found that men prefer to look at women. It's true. And the same study found that women also prefer to look at women. So we almost always have women in our videos, and we also put out infographics. I don't know if you can see up there, construction of a bomb shelter, $30,000. Bomb shelters in Gaza, built by Hamas, $0. Construction of a tunnel, $3 million. Tunnels in Gaza, 400 miles. That just puts it into perspective. And we need the young people to understand things better, which is why we're using technology more and more. So if people are complaining, why is this war going on for so long? They didn't understand what it's like to be fighting when there are terror tunnels underground, so we made an interactive map of the tunnels underneath the hospitals and the schools so people could see why urban warfare and above ground and below ground is so complicated. And as part of our shift to fighting in technology, we're dealing now with the mainstreaming of AI. How many of you have used some kind of AI platform over the last couple weeks? Pretty much all of you. And the ones who weren't raising your hand, you did too, you just don't realize it. You can't avoid it anymore. 61% of adults admit that they have in 2025, up 40% from 2024. And that's where people are getting their information nowadays. So that's why we are being trained by Google Cloud's Gemini team to optimize our content so Gemini on Google will use us as a source of information, not just Al Jazeera and Reddit and Wikipedia. That's really important. And using facial technology now, recognition to help us identify terrorists masquerading as journalists, and this early alert system that I mentioned before, which is called Bias Breaker. Imagine if you have the journalists be able to test themselves and see if their articles are anti-Israel before they publish them. Wouldn't that be great? So that's what we're trying to do and release it to the public as well, and try to make a difference that way. But how can you deal with AI and help fight for Israel? Well, that's why we have this slide that says, what do Jews say? Aye, aye, aye. Yeah, so here's what you can do to improve your AI. You need to argue with it. Don't be afraid to argue with Gemini and Ask Perplexity and ChatGPT, and it bothers me that with Jews being such an argumentative people, and Abraham, the first Jew, argued with God, that people are afraid to argue with Grok. Tell him it's wrong. When your AI says information about Israel, ask what its sources are. And when it tells you that its sources are the United Nations and the New York Times, tell him that those are not reputable sources of information about Israel. Tell them to check out Honest Reporting and the Jerusalem Post and your local Jewish Federation website over here. When it gets things wrong, ask it to reassess its response and to provide source diversity. Ask, what do multiple sources across the political spectrum say? And then the next time you ask a question, the AI tool will say things more right. And not just of you, of other people too. You can make an impact. Yeah, you got to understand that AI is different than social media right now because it doesn't make money yet. The social media platforms have an interest in keeping you in your comfort zone. And because that's what makes you stay online for as long as possible. And the longer you're online, the more money they make. That's not true yet of the AI platforms. They are still learning. We can still teach them. We can still make it better. But how do you make things better on social media? Well, it says here, engage and share. I'll explain you what that means. So let's say you see something that you like on Facebook or on Instagram that's pro-Israel. Please share it on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is owned by the same people as Facebook and Instagram, and that'll help the algorithm. And if there's something that is anti-Israel that you don't like, but you want people to see it, don't share it on WhatsApp. Take a picture of it on your phone, screenshot, and share the screenshot. And it won't know that when you share that on WhatsApp, it won't know. And you won't impact the algorithm. Now, let's say there was a video that you liked, and you want to share that. First of all, watch the video until the end before you share it, because nobody does that. You don't have to actually watch it till the end. You can go make coffee or pee or whatever, and just let it play, because that will really impress the algorithm. And then when you share it, the algorithm will think this is a video that more people will want to see. So please also follow us on your favorite social media platform. I'm used to speaking to college students and Birthright. Their phones are out the whole time, and it's not impolite. You're allowed to take out your phone and go to your favorite social media platform, find Honest Reporting, and click follow or like or whatever. Go to our website and click subscribe. But when you click subscribe, don't only put your own email address, put the email address of your children and grandchildren without asking their permission. How many of you, this is to help with print, how many of you have canceled the subscription to a media outlet for being anti-Israel? Wow. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I got to say, with all due respect, I think you made a mistake. I know you were trying to take revenge by taking away your $100. It didn't work. They didn't care. If you want your revenge, buy their paper. And when they get things wrong, shame them on social media. And if you don't have 100,000 followers on social media, I do. Send it to us. The email address is on top, action@honestreporting.com. And I have some flyers over here that we're going to put by the door so that when everybody leaves, they can take a flyer. And I wish the flyers had on the action@honestreporting.com email address. But it does have an email address, and she will forward you to there. And this all helps.
You can accomplish the same thing by not subscribing and still reading their articles and still spreading news.
Okay. Whatever works for you, sir. But I want you, as the most educated news consumers in Milwaukee, to be the ones watching and reading and letting us know when they're getting things wrong. We depend on you. I have a very small staff. I don't usually, the QR code goes to donate just to help us get a larger staff. We've got 4 people that are scouring the entire internet. And because of that, we depend on ordinary people around the world to share when they see some media outlet getting something very wrong. And so we, if you could help us as scouts, we'd really appreciate it. But my last advice to you is to be a mensch. Because if you're a good person, then people will trust you as a source of information. And before you know it, your friends of your friends and your likers of your likers will all be more informed. It really is a mitzvah. That was in this week's Parsha. It said there, mitval sheker tilchak, which means push away lies. Other things that Jews are supposed to stay away from, like violating the Sabbath or bread on Passover, it says, Shmuel, guard yourself. But when it comes to lies, it says, you got to push it away. It's an active mitzvah. And so I appreciate all your help in making sure the world gets more honest reporting. Thank you very much. So the rabbi is going to ask the questions that people came up with, but I'm going to ask Donna or Suda to take these flyers, put them by the door before people escape.
If you take a seat, thank you so much.
Flyer?